Hello, my name is Aubrey Carr, and for my grant proposal, I looked at forest density effects on soil and litter moisture content in New South Wales, Australia. This proposed study will focus on the wet sclerophyll forest in New South Wales, Australia. This forest type is similar to the dry sclerophyll woodlands and species, but different by many other aspects. In the graph on the right, I will be focusing on the northeastern portion of New South Wales, outlined in black. This forest type is considered one of the most productive landscapes and supports very tall trees. It also has a historic fire regime of typically infrequent fire, but ranges in severity from stand replacing to low severity surface burns. Because of the species characteristics in this forest, they have fire adaptive traits, but also have some that promote flammability, like flammable oils and waxes and extensive flammable litter. In the map on the right, you can also see little pink specks intermixed in the blue. This is rainforest. Because of this mixture, this wet forest is on the more wet side of the scale than normal, leading to more fire suppression because of high moisture levels. The Black Summer brush fires of 2019 and 2020 sparked this kind of big research boom that looked at why these fires occurred at such high severity and where climate change is going that could make these fire occurrences regular. Most research from these fires focused on the conditions that allowed the fire to burn at such a high severity. A major driver was a lack of litter moisture from severe drought. Also, reduced litter moisture reduces regeneration because eucalyptus requires a moist litter layer for seed propagation. This leads to a lack of fire resilience and an increase in dry fuels. Other studies looked at the extent of damage, like canopy damage and air pollution. As climate change effects worsen in the future, temperatures are expected to increase, and forest growth is also expected to increase because of an increase in CO2. My hypothesis is that increased forest density from increasing CO2 will increase soil and litter moisture, thus reducing the probability of severe wildfire in the future. There is a need for this project because climate conditions are expected to worsen in the future. There will be prolonged fire seasons, warmer temperatures, reduction of resources, and other impacts. New South Wales is also home to a rich diversity of plant and animal species. 85% of Australia's plant species are endemic and is home to half of the world's marsupial species. Frequent high fire severities and decreased litter moisture degrades habitat. There is also a need for this project because if we understand how climate conditions can help with some of these challenges, like increased forest density, increasing moisture through reduced sun penetration and increased transpiration from more trees, we can understand what parts are beneficial and focus our efforts, time, and resources on the most concerning parts of the system. There also has been no research done on how the increase in forest density can cause changes in soil and other moisture levels. This is important because if moisture levels do increase, we kind of have something in our toolbox we can use to help mitigate climate induced severe wildfire, because high moisture content is currently a major limiting factor to fire in this system. These maps here were just some cool normal temperature and precipitation patterns I saw for the area currently. It was published in 2022. So we can see that the area of interest still experiences a lot of precipitation, but still has moderate to high temperatures. Before any data is collected about moisture and growth, data would first have to be gathered about the current conditions of the site. 100 acres will be selected and average trees per acre will be determined. Then density data will be recorded in terms of meters between stems and the average will then be calculated. All data will be combined, graphed, and then broken equally into 3 parts. The moderate or normal group should reflect the average of all the data. The low group will be the lower part below the average, and the highly stocked group will be the higher part above the average. In the example below, it shows the trend line, which would be the average, and then anything above will be the high, and then again below it will be the lowly stocked group. To test the hypothesis to determine changes in soil and litter moisture during fire season, we will use hygrometers. Data will be compared across stand densities to determine moisture differences. There will be 6 groups of stands. 2 at low densities, 2 at moderate, and 2 at high densities. Trees per acre for each group will be determined after a site evaluation of meters between stems. Soil and litter samples will also be taken and measured for moisture content. The New South Wales and Australian Regional Climate Modelling, also known as NARCLIM 2.0, is a virtual modeling program that can be used to determine future precipitation and climate patterns. This project also gives future greenhouse gas emission scenarios that could give information on possible CO2 output into the atmosphere in the future. Data from these studies will be put into this model to determine future changes to moisture based on temperature and precipitation projections and current moisture levels. The sites will be from Kemsey in New South Wales near Wili Wili National Park. This site was burnt 30 years ago and has a patchy composition, so we should be able to get each different density group within this forest structure. Soil and litter moisture studies need to be conducted first because results will be used during regeneration studies. Eucalyptus will be grown in a greenhouse with the same densities. Stocking of saplings will parallel normal moderate stocking based on the results from the site evaluation. There will be a total of 3 stands and each will be placed in their own CO2 chambers. CO2 levels will start at 400 parts per million and regeneration and density in terms of distances between stems will be recorded over one growing season. Then CO2 levels will increase by 3 parts per million every year and regeneration recorded the following growing season. The process will be repeated over 10 years. Litter and soil moisture data will be used to determine what moisture levels to set each stand at based on NARCLIM projections. Moisture levels will be adjusted over the span of 10 years each year, also based on moisture projections from this model. The results from this site will give insight into what range of eucalyptus densities affect the range in litter and soil moisture levels. This bridges the gap between the already current research of how moisture levels limit or enhance fire regimes in different parts of New South Wales. There is already an extensive amount of research published about moisture effects on fire regimes for Australia, so a peer-reviewed journal article on results would only benefit the community and spark further research in this area to further bridge this gap. In addition to the final publication, because the study spans 10 years, results will be published on an annual basis for growth and regeneration changes in the data. These publications and future research initiated by this study will help create management documents because there's a better understanding of how several elements in the system, like moisture, will be interacting with fire and ignition sources. Finally, during and after the study, a website will be maintained that includes videos and instructions on how to duplicate the study. Land ownership varies across Australia, so making this information accessible to all stakeholders can help further research in this field. Contact information will also be provided to answer any questions. New South Wales' vegetation structure and fire regime is largely dependent on precipitation, temperature, and retained moisture. Rainforest is actually being seen to take over parts of the wet sclerophyll type already. These shifts are a result of moisture levels. Hopefully, these open lines of communication and information sharing will increase research in this field and decrease wildfire impacts. That concludes my presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions in the comments. Thank you.